Hi, this is Satin Russell. How are you doing? Today is Friday, April the 3rd, which officially marks the third week that I have been in self-isolation or self-quarantine or social distancing or whatever we're calling this pandemic thing that we're all doing. It also happens to be my birthday, which is why I'm wearing my tiara today. Gotta be a little extra, gotta wear a little extra sparkle. Um, I was thinking about how I wanted to celebrate my birthday, and I decided that what I'd like to do is give everybody else a gift instead of trying to get gifts. So I have made Secret Hunger available for free today and Saturday and Sunday, so the rest of this weekend. And instead of just making it for free, I also thought that I would like to read the prologue aloud for people because I know that there are a lot of books out there for free and for sale right now as artists step up and try to help in any way that they can. And I got the idea from my friend Felicia Ray Davin on Twitter, who started a hashtag called Living Room Reads. So if you're interested, feel free to go and check out the hashtag because there are a lot of other authors who are participating as well, and you might find your next best to be read. So, a little bit about the book. Secret Hunger is the first book that I've written. It's the first book in my Harper Sisters series, which is a romantic suspense trilogy that's set up in Bath, Maine. And it's about Olivia Harper, who is the oldest of the three sisters. She is a chef who owns her own breakfast cafe, and she meets her love interest, Mason Clark, who is a Boston police detective who has a tragic incident on the job that he is recuperating from. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and read the prologue for you. Detective Mason Clark looked up from the file in his lap and watched the scenery pass by his window. Multi-family homes with peeling paint and sagging porches slumped alongside cracked sidewalks. Even the sky looked gray and dingy, as if it too suffered from the same socioeconomic forces as the neighborhood it watched over. Amidst the monochromatic backdrop, colored strands of lights were haphazardly draped in windows and interwoven between the slats in some of the fences. Mason turned to his partner of 5 years and grumbled. "It's not even Halloween or Thanksgiving yet, and people already have their Christmas lights up. When did everybody start rushing through the holidays?" Detective Ryan Miller shrugged and laughed at his best friend. "I don't know, man. You'd think people would want to savor one holiday before rushing to the next. It's not as if post-holiday winter holds some great prize. Late January and February are the worst. All of the bad weather and none of the good stuff." He thought about that and nodded. "Speaking of which, you and Shauna getting along any better? She gonna let you see your kid for the holidays?" Mason knew they'd been having some problems and recently separated. He also knew Ryan was still hoping to work things out. He looked over at his friend, who now had a pained look on his face. "Sort of. I get the day after Thanksgiving with her, and we'll be stopping by for Christmas Eve. They're heading over to Shauna's parents' house on Christmas Day." Stopped at a traffic light, they stared out of the windshield as a wrinkled, drunk old man stumbled past them on the crosswalk. He chuckled ruefully. "She told me she wants a MacBook." Ryan pulled the car to the curb. They paused a moment, taking in the details of the run-down, faded house sitting before them. At one point, Mason thought it might have been blue, but the building had long become a faded gray over time. The color fled long ago, abandoning the inhabitants much like hope and prosperity had done before it. Mason set the papers on the dash and removed his seatbelt. "So this is where the bastard lives, huh? You want to take point on this, or should I?" "I've got it. Something about this guy stinks. I think about scum like this stalking and hurting women, and it makes me physically ill. All I can think is, what if someone like this got close to my Jenny? If he's our guy, I'm hoping we can throw him away for good. All right, you get point, but don't get overeager. Remember, we don't have any solid evidence on him yet. They tried to get him for stalking over in Ohio, but couldn't get anything to stick. Ryan sighed with exasperation. It doesn't help that stalking is so hard to prosecute. A woman practically has to be assaulted or kidnapped just to get any attention. By then, it's usually too late. Mason agreed. Well, hopefully, it's not too late for this woman. They both swung out of the car and scanned their surroundings. The sun was just beginning to break through the clouds, but Mason could still see his breath coming out in little puffs. Gray patches of snow cowered in shadows, remnants of the last snowstorm. Leading the way, Ryan walked up the steps in front of the door and rang the bell. Mr. Mendez, are you home? We need to ask you a few questions. Robert Mendez barely cracked the door open. He stood between it and the frame, his body blocking any view of the gloom behind him. His body blocking any gloom behind him. He wasn't very tall, only about 5'10" or so, but his shoulders were broad and it was obvious he kept himself in good shape. Mason noticed he was dressed completely in black cargo pants, combat boots, and a black shirt buttoned all the way up to his neck. Officers, Robert looked at the two men standing before him and scowled. What do you want? In his most official tone, Ryan inquired, Robert Mendez, we're in the process of canvassing the area and have reason to believe you may know something about the disappearance of a young woman from this neighborhood. May we come in and ask you a few questions? Just then, they heard a thump, like something or someone falling, and a soft, muffled cry from one of the back rooms. Mason watched Robert's shoulders tense and his eyes give a quick flick before immediately smoothing his face back to an inscrutable expression. Sir, are you alone in the house? Who do you have back there with you? Raising his voice, Ryan took a small step forward, lifting his hand to push the door further open. Shock and surprise registered on Ryan's face as his chest exploded in a sea of red. His expression seared itself into Mason's memory just as a bullet slammed into his own body, slightly off-center since his partner shielded most of him. The weight of the other detectives stumbling back threw Mason off balance, sending them both of them tumbling down the stoop. Mason struggled to see past the black spots beginning to form in his eyes and managed to whip his gun from its holster. Desperately, he pulled the trigger, aiming towards the man now dashing out the front door towards them. The door frame splintered as he took his only shot. A second slug created a fiery trail of pain along his arm, grazing his shoulder. Gasping, he began to hear screams from across the street. With adrenaline rushing through him, he attempted to get up, but his left arm didn't seem to be working very well, and he couldn't get enough oxygen into his lungs. Each breath speared him with searing pain. For a moment, the entire world centered on his next inhalation. With a feeling of detachment, almost as if he were watching a movie, Mason crumbled to the ground and lay there while the suspect bounded over him and Ryan, rushing towards his car. A woman with large, haunted eyes and a nest of stringy brown hair peered out from the shadows within the house. Her mouth formed a hollow oval, reminding him of an Edward Munch painting. Her scream echoed through his soul, mirroring the one in his own head. As he succumbed to the blackness dragging him under, his last thought was of Ryan. So that is the prologue to my first book called Secret Hunger. And if that sounds like interesting to you, then you can pick up a free copy on Amazon. Just follow the link that's going to be included with this video. And I hope that it brings you some entertainment and gives you a brief respite from everything that's going on in this world. And I hope that this video finds you and your family healthy and happy. And hopefully, we can all get through this together. So, thank you for joining me. Have a great day. Bye.